You know what they say, a drop of honey kills every creature until there are none left. Hello folks, Phil Gallagher, aka ThrabenU here for another Legacy video, and Simon has given us a really interesting starting point for a deck list today, which I have revised a little bit. And this is Simon, like PSY, like psychic power, like that sort of stuff, not Simon with an S. So, we're going to combine two things that we've been doing on the channels, and that is playing with sweet lands-based decks and trying the jank. So our jank for today is Ripples of Undeath, which I'm not actually sure is going to be jank here. So at the beginning of your first main phase, you mill 3 cards. Then you can pay 1 and 3 life, 1 mana and 3 life. And if you do, you put a card from among those cards into your hand. So this is kind of like Life from the Loam number 5 and 6, right? I mean, there's some fundamental differences here. But the cool part is that the milling happens no matter what. So even if you don't necessarily want any cards from those, you can still build up things in your graveyard for Life from the Loam, or maybe a game-ending Lumra a little bit later on. So we have Life from the Loam to recur all of our sweet lands. We have Entomb to tutor up our sweet lands on something interesting that we'll talk about in a second. So we have effectively 8 life from the Loams, and then we also have Ripples of Undeath as kind of 10 life from the Loam effects. And a lot of times in these like Lumra Living Wish Lands and other lands decks of this nature, I want to be playing a decent number of effects at like 2 mana that give us good card advantage. And this Entomb is trying to function as another one of those. If memory serves, the last time I tried out Entomb alongside Life from the Loam, I didn't like it. We'll see if the deck building today changes that. Many times in these decks, I am playing Mana Bond as a secondary way to win. Well, not win, but make extra land drops, which leads to me winning. And this deck is trying Burgeoning instead. Whenever an opponent plays a land card, you can put a land from your hand onto the battlefield, which can skyrocket you ahead in the early game. Now, this deck is very prison-oriented relative to some of the other lands builds that I've been playing recently. Like, we've got Tabernacles, we've got Mazes, Blast Zones, Field of Ruins, Ghost Quarters, Wastelands. Like, we're looking to attack mana hard and win eventually. And since we are prisony in our approach, we are playing Drop of Honey to destroy as many creatures as possible. And then we've got a cheeky singleton. We have Vengeful Pharaoh, which, whenever combat damage is dealt to you or a planeswalker you control, if it's in your graveyard, you destroy target attacking creature and then put Vengeful Pharaoh on top of your library. So the idea is your opponent attacks, you don't block, you entomb for Vengeful Pharaoh, you kill their creature, you dredge Life from the Loam, you put Vengeful Pharaoh back in your graveyard, and you throw them middle fingers as you go, haha, all of your creatures die forever. So it's cheeky, and it's fine if they're hitting you with smaller creatures. If they are hitting you in, Murktide Regent sized chunks for 7 each time, maybe it's less good. But we'll see if we can get a couple of cheeky Vengeful Pharaoh kills today. It all will have been worth it if that does happen. Now, most of the sideboard here is just Living Wish targets. You can get creatures or lands. And outside of Graveyard Hate, which I'm going really, really heavy on, Oops All Spells is all over leagues right now. So I'm going heavy on the Graveyard Hate. We just have a lot of the normal Lumra Living Wish targets here. Not too much to say there. I am worried that Graveyard Hate is going to be really good against us. So we don't have Dark Depths here. We don't have Urza's Sagas here. So generally speaking, we are planning to win the game with a Living Wish target of some kind. As far as stuff in the main deck goes, like there is a Lair of the Hydra that can win the game, and that's it. We're not really planning on casting Vengeful Pharaoh, although it is technically possible to get triple back black hips in the very late game here. So, let's see how Simon's brainchild fares. I have been really enjoying these lands decks recently. It has felt like trying to solve a puzzle most of the time while playing them in those legacy game patterns that I personally really enjoy, but we will absolutely get punked by combo, especially in game one playing this deck. We're absolutely hedging against the fair stuff in submitting a deck that looks like this one. And if you need your Ripples of Undeaths, your Vengeful Pharaohs, or any number of other, I don't know, 100,000 unique magic cards, consider checking out my sponsor, TOAMagic.com. Promo code ThrabenU will save you 5% on your order and let them know that they should keep supporting my channel. And you get free shipping, and you can expedite that shipping if you got a tournament and you need those cards ASAP. So, with that being said, let's battle. All right, we're playing against Chrono Trigger, second best game with Chrono in the name. Yeah, I'm starting fights in the comments today. Let's go. And I'll play a Caracas. We are looking to use Ripples of Undeath as our primary engine this game. Chrono Cross fucks. I love that game so much. I played through the remaster, I don't know, about a year ago, and really enjoyed reliving one of my favorite games from my childhood. All right, opponent is not just snapping off Wasteland on ThrabenU. So I'm going to throw down an Exploration. I'm going to throw down an Urborg. Throw down Ripples of Undeath. If this resolves, I don't really care if my ThrabenU ends up getting Wastelanded afterwards. I send some weird messages to my opponents here. So, like, I send the message that I don't have more lands. I send the message that in the short term... Ooh, it's an actual factual Eldrazi deck. So... I could eat a Sowing Mycospawn here, which would not be great for me. And Drop of Honey is not particularly good against this stuff. Okay, that's not green mana, so that's at least good for me. Oh! Humorously, that's probably not even a very good play. But here we are. Alright, so Swamp, Field of Ruin, Living Wish. What does Living Wish get me here? Get me Maze of Ith in the short term. Maze of Ith in the short term is fine. Yeah, anyway, so Chalice on 1. Generally speaking, in the lands matchup, once I have an Exploration in play, in a more normal lands instance, is really only shutting off crop rotation and maybe some Urza Saga targets or something like that. So it's not a super potent play. Humorously, I end up having 3 1-drops in my hand after saying that. Although these cards don't matter too much. Like Drop of Honey would get rid of an Eldrazi spawn token every turn cycle, which is not super powerful. Alright, looks like Sowing Mycospawn cometh. My opponent is not getting rid of the Eldrazi spawn token and is tapping Wasteland. Okay, that's why. There is more pain coming. Is this just going to immediately be followed up by another Sowing Mycospawn? If so, this is the 6-mana version. Anyway, oh, nope. It is a Thought-Knot Seer instead. There's still 4 floating mana, which can still be 6. Anyway, even though Eldrazi has a low, like, win rate and percentage of the metagame in Legacy right now, this is absurd, right? Like, this is turn 3. My opponent has not attacked with a creature yet. I am at 9. And they have locked me out of 1-drops, had the possibility of wastelanding me multiple times and declined, taken one of the best cards from my hand, and I am just going to die next turn. A Life from the Loam. Alright. I hit a Wasteland. I did not hit a Tabernacle on top of that. I can't get back Entomb here because of Chalice of the Void. Otherwise, I could Entomb for Tabernacle, Wasteland this, Tabernacle. That would leave my opponent with 3 permanents. So, like, bam, bam, bam. That would still be lethal damage. Not lethal through Maze of Ith. Yeah, I am dead. That was an absurdly strong hand. We are not going to be sideboarding much while playing this deck. Most of our stuff is Living Wish targets and Graveyard Hate. We might make small changes here. So for example, I think I am fine boarding in the extra Maze of Ith in this matchup and boarding out the Bojukabog. The Living Wish can still give me my endgame Haymakers. Still have Living Wish for Rec Sage. Excuse me, if I need to answer something like a Chalice of the Void. which again, on average, shouldn't be that good, but sure was good that game. This is very awkward, because this is a tapped green land, so I can play this on 1, but then I don't get, like, Entomb into Life from the Loam for Wasteland. I think I'll just mulligan that one and hope for the best here. I think I am going to keep the multiple Wasteland hand and assume that it ends up working out. I'm going to get rid of Living Wish here. My opponent is down to 5 cards. Opponent leads on a Devourer of Destiny, which is fine. I'll just pass the turn here. My opponent gets their Devourer of Destiny trigger to help smooth out their hand after a double mulligan. And non-land cards hit exile. I assume that my opponent is going to need some bonus mana here. You're being on 5 and then facing down 1 to 3 copies of Wasteland. Ancient Tomb, else on 1, which is fine. So I will Wasteland that Ancient Tomb, make a land drop, and pass. I considered getting rid of Burgeoning to help play around initial Chalice of the Void, and then decided against it. Or I don't want my opponent to get to 3 mana. I am fine Wastelanding their Wasteland. And I will play Ghost Quarter. Now Eldrazi Temple hits play, which I might Ghost Quarter. I find Ghost Quartering that, it'll almost certainly convert into a Wastes. I could also Ghost Quarter myself to get green for Life from the Loam. I think I am not going to do that immediately. Let's hit that Eldrazi Temple. It has converted into Forest, not Wastes. Lotus Petal, pass turn. I could Ghost Quarter this, it may or may not get replaced. I could Ghost Quarter myself, but if I do that, I'm not casting Life from the Loam immediately. Neither of these lands tap for mana. Okay, I'm just going to play a Maze of Ith and pass the turn accordingly. Opponent says, I wonder if Life from the Loam is a viable sideboard card against this strategy. I think what I'm doing is a small enough portion of the metagame that that's not worth your time. We're in like a 60% combo metagame or something like that. So I'd focus attention there. And opponent agrees with me. So now my opponent could get something like a Glaring Fleshraker in play, and I can use Tabernacle to kind of help out with that sort of stuff. And that is indeed what is happening. I would like to draw a mana-producing land here. Fantastic. So do I Tabernacle now to tie up one of my opponent's mana? That seems fine. That seems fine. Glaring Fleshraker crashes in. Then they pass the turn. Now I've hit a basic land, so we are going to Life from the Loam 3 targets back. Then I've got the ability to obliterate their lands 4 days. I am keeping the board in check currently. A soul land this turn could be a really, really big deal though, and allow my opponent to force damage through. That is a second Glaring Fleshraker. So my opponent will be able to keep both of those, despite the fact that I'm going to Wasteland them off of a Cavern of Souls here. It is unclear to me who is currently winning this game. So I Wasteland that Cavern. I think I'm going to Ghost Quarter this Forest as well. Taking my opponent off of green mana could matter for something like a Sowing Mycospawn. They do have a Wastes, though. This is fine. Oh no, I think my opponent clicked 1 too many times. Oh no. So I think they're now at the point where they can't sacrifice that for mana to save the other Glaring Fleshraker. Oh, that's brutal. So I got a Glaring Fleshraker for free there that I should not have gotten. That sort of stuff does not happen in Paper. Here's an Ancient Tomb, which I can get rid of via Wasteland. That is just giving my opponent mana for a future turn. All right, and pass. I don't need to be dredging this Life from the Loam right now, I don't think. I just have a gajillion lands in hand already to deploy. And this Ghost Quarter presumably also is now Strip Mine. Okay, my opponent is having trouble with this interaction. I'm going to explain this one to them. Okay, so now they get it. It's a little bit of a weird interaction. It's sort of like a Leonin Arbiter style interaction where if you don't know how it works on Magic Online, it is legitimately pretty confusing. And opponent concedes that one there. The game wasn't literally over, but we had pretty solid control of the game. So do I want to trim some 1-drops because they are getting stuck in my hand? Honestly, not really. Like, I could maybe trim one drop and just play a Sowing Mycospawn in the main deck because I'm unlikely to want to tutor for that. But it's just a reasonable card to cast. Do something like this and be fine with that. Again, though, I'm not actually playing that many 1-drops at the end of the day. This is a good hand that does not produce green mana, because we are trying to get cute with the Entombs. This is not a Yavimaya. If this is a Yavimaya, this hand is great. I don't think I keep this one as it stands. And then this second hand is slow, but has the sort of tools that I am looking for. A Chalice of the Void messes with me pretty badly here. Yep. Tabernacle is great. My hand does not lose its sort of inevitability here, but not getting the extra land drop immediately definitely hurts. So, Sowing Mycospawn's an asshole. We all know that. I could play this game starting on basics to be better against Wasteland, but if I do so, I'm not maximizing my life from the Loam, which is a thing that I want to do here. That's just going to go to Graveyard. So now my life from the Loam guaranteed pulls back 2 cards instead of 1, which I am on board with. There are Fairy Macabre? Or maybe a Kozilek's Command. My opponent is deciding whether or not they would like to exile these lands or get the life from the Loam itself. Yeah, so Chalice of the Void is annoying here, because if I can make an extra land drop with Exploration, I Tabernacle these, and this game is totally different. Like, I still have the things that matter for the matchup accessible in my hand, but I lose out on some speed here, and my opponent could play something like a 7-drop this turn. Oh, fun. So I lose both of my lands to this. I lose the basic to the trigger, and then Wasteland gets Underground Mortuary. Alright. Anyway, this is why my podcast has talked about, like, Sowing Mycospawn needing to be banned in Legacy. I can play a Tabernacle to slow my opponent down. It is unclear to me if that is better than actually just making my land drops and being able to cast my spells, though. That's another one. Alright, we're done here. Please ban Sowing Mycospawn in Legacy. You don't get agency when you are playing against it. Today's video is sponsored by Moxfield.com, and I could say all sorts of great things about them, but I'm just going to point to this number. I have 488 deck lists stored on this site. That should give you a feel for how I feel about this website. And if you were to go to my profile, you could see all the deck lists that I'm messing around with, including my EDH decks, and you can even see some of the deck lists I record with before they hit the channel. Ooh. My opening hand is fine. If Life from the Loam were to eat something like a Force of Negation, though, this hand just doesn't do anything unless my opponent is a creature-based deck. Life from the Loam is replaceable enough that I'm going to try to high roll into something better. Did not succeed. I do not have green mana here. Again, the Urborg Yavimaya issue of trying to squeeze Entomb into this deck list is clear. On 5, I will keep this and hope that Ripples of Undeath can carry me. I think I get the ETB tapped Bojuka Bog out of the way on turn 1, despite the fact that Bojuka Bog is a decent land in the format. Tundra. Might be playing against a Cephalid Breakfast style deck. We're going to Wasteland here. I don't want to play Tabernacle, and then my opponent just brainstorms in response in upkeep, and they end up with a Planeswalker. Like, I can check the creature very, very well. I cannot check the Planeswalker very well. Let's try to slow down the creature here. This unfortunately does just, like, incentivize a Brainstorm if my opponent can do that. We dodged Brainstorm in upkeep, so that's great. Sure. So now I will attempt to get a reasonable card going. We can Sowing Mycospawn in a little bit if this gets countered. Spell Pierce. My opponent might be some sort of Esper control deck. Could be using Dreadnought as a win condition if they're trying to be low enough to the ground to have Spell Pierce. Up to 3 clues. My opponent can start cracking them now. Ooh, it's Stoneforge Mystic. I have Maze of Ith for Kaldra. That's not that big of a deal. If I Wasteland, I get hit for 5. I'm fine with that. Well, I maybe get hit for 5. I'm gonna cast a Living Wish here. What am I most likely to need? I could get a secondary Maze of Ith. That seems fine. So my opponent could put in Kaldra with Stoneforge, attack in for 5 with Kaldra, and just go like, I'm putting you on a 4-turn clock this way. Or they could save their creatures. They're going for saving the creatures. 19-turn clock. Shuffle off Ponder. Ripples is fine. Let's get that going. And I think put that Maze of Ith in play. Make sure I don't eat a bunch of damage from a Kaldra. My life total becomes more relevant when I start going in on Ripples of Undeath. The opponent is starting to get enough mana that double cracking clues to flip Tamiyo is becoming real. So Ripples trigger. Yeah. Don't have anything else to do with my mana. So this is fine. I'm gonna pick up Lush Portico, I think. Forest can go to Graveyard. I'll pass the turn. My opponent can either crack a clue or put in Kaldra, depending on what exactly they want to do here. And it is putting in Kaldra. Alright, I think we are now at... wait, my opponent has cracked a clue immediately, which means that they are probably giving up the Stoneforge Mystic Body here. Oh, no, sorry. Was thinking about something else. So the Kaldra is indestructible. My opponent doesn't have to pay for that. So Vengeful Pharaoh is in my graveyard, though. So this is going to happen, and now I can destroy target attacking creature. I'm going to destroy this Tamiyo. Oh, geez. We have encountered a Vengeful Pharaoh bug of some kind where this game is now looping. I'm going to see if it figures its shit out. All right, so we are back to the same portion as before. I'm going to try the same thing again, and we're going to see if the game loops. Nope, it figured it out. I guess good job, Magic Online. All right, Ripples trigger. I have redrawn Vengeful Pharaoh, obviously. Wait, what the fuck is going... Okay, that is unusual. Exploration, Life from the Loam, and Burgeoning. Yes. I would like that Life from the Loam. I can get the Life from the Loam next turn. Do I want Exploration? Maybe I just take Exploration now. Exploration just is safer in the slightly long term. Drop of Honey. This is a destroy. That's also not going to kill Kaldra. I think I'll just put that into my graveyard. Oh, neat. We are both at 30 minutes of clock. I think clock got it added to our clock. All right, opponent gives up Stoneforge. Their Kaldra, which is physically separated from their germ token. Still good to go. That appears to just be a visual bug. It looks like it is functionally still working. I'll dredge Life from the Loam now, and we'll just kind of go wild. Do I need Entomb? I don't feel like I need to pay 3 life right now with Life from the Loam here. I'm going to get Wasteland, Field of Ruin, Ghost Quarter. An opponent needs a Force of Negation here. I get one more draw towards it. All right, they get a Force of Will in the short term. That gives them another turn. Play Verdant Catacombs and pass. I think I have a second Surveil land in the deck. The opponent has plenty of lands, has plenty of mana, but Maze of Ith and Recursive Maze of Ith at that is probably putting my opponent in a pretty awkward spot. I might have some trouble presenting my own win condition through a small pile of counter magic over there, but my opponent's probably got an uphill battle. They would like to get a flipped Tamiyo or something like that. Ooh, do they have Lion Sash? Lion Sash would be good. Assimilation Aegis, I think that exiles a permanent. Exile up to 1 target creature. Sure. We'll just kind of passively keep that in mind. Oh, I don't have another one. Alright, I'll grab a Swamp so I can cast a Vengeful Pharaoh, I guess. Reg Life from the Loam. Ripple trigger. I don't really know that any of that is worth the life right now. The Life from the Loam, target Wasteland. That is another Force of Will. Oh, Assimilation Aegis is literally just the blue card to pitch to Force of Will. Fair. Yeah, alright, and they're just not bothering to click on Stoneforge Mystic a billion times. Their mana is probably better invested in cracking clues. I don't know if they have Force of Negation that they are working towards in game 1. So super long term, I do need to be aware that I can mill myself out with Ripples. Cryptic Coat, that's the one that can be bounced. Sure. That's all fine. Reg, Life from the Loam, Ripple. I will pay some life for a Living Wish, absolutely. So Life from the Loam. We go Wasteland, Wasteland, Wasteland. Like so. Play Wasteland. Play Wasteland. Let's see if a Living Wish resolves. It does. Yes, I will use this ability. I will pick up Lumra. Lumra will do crimes next turn. I am fine putting the squeeze on my opponent's mana. Opponent junks their Stoneforge. And I think I am probably not dredging Life from the Loam very many times anymore. Okay, opponent just concedes. Good. Good. Like, I was very much in control of that game, but, like, I had 22 cards left in library, and I was getting rid of 4 of them per turn cycle, so I really only had 4 or 5 turns to physically kill my opponent. This not being optional is scary in a grindy matchup. We did get a Vengeful Pharaoh kill that game. Now, did it absolutely cause Magic Online to freak out and cause the game to restart? Yes, but we got a Vengeful Pharaoh kill. I'm kind of interested in putting the other Maze of Ith into the deck. My opponent seems to have trouble winning through it. I'd kind of like to naturally draw that, and then I save Living Wish or Rex Sage, Thrun, Lumra. Are you like pseudo hexproof on my turn? No, you're indestructible during my turn, so you're not going to eat a Swords to Plowshares. Good. Yeah, let's get this last Maze of Ith in there. Be taking out a Field of Ruin, and then the rest of these seem fine. Opponent says, this is a spicy one. Living Wish is a first for my legacy career. Friend, I have a series of videos for you. We have a Ripples of Undeath. Card's obviously good. I have a Maze, I have a Wasteland. One counterspell slows me down a lot. I think I just keep the hand, though. Nice, we're going to get to start the game over, but I have drawn an extra card. That's insane. I'm not going to cast that here because I always want to destroy this, and if exploration gets countered, I don't destroy that land immediately. I am not in a hurry to make my extra land drops. I don't think I have to have the greed there. By waiting a turn, I may open up an exploration to a Spell Pierce. That's not the end of the world if it happens. Ripples of Undeath resolving later is probably more important. I would like to surveil here. Let's go no. That's an okay draw because it's something I can do alongside Ripples next turn. But I already have like Stoneforge Mystic for Cauldra checked via Maze of Ith. Opponent's fetching double basic into Stoneforge Mystic. Going for Cryptic Coat. Sure. So let's play a land. Attempt to resolve Ripples. Ripples resolves. I'm going to put Maze of Ith in play immediately so that if my opponent has Cauldra in hand already, that I just mess with that and don't take 5 immediately. Again, I don't want to take 5 if I can avoid it because Ripples hurts my own life total. Ooh, goodbye Ripples. Sure. Ripple basics. I don't know how many basics my opponent is going to play. I don't think I just immediately fire off Ghost Quarter on one of their lands. I don't know that that makes sense, but it's possible that they have 3 basics. Should we put them to the test? Sure. If I drew any reasonable spell there, I don't think I would. Oh, right. I fucking forgot about the black. Whatever. That's relevant, too. Yeah. Like, that takes them off of Stoneforging in a piece of equipment in the short term. And then maybe I can knock them off of a Tundra or something. Now I just want, like, a Life from the Loam. Entomb is slow Life from the Loam, but that would be fine. Living Wish would be okay as well. Cameo is good if my opponent can get that flipped. And then we'll do some marginal deck thinning here. Oh no, I do have 2 Surveil Lands. I guess one was just in my graveyard the previous time that I looked. Forest is not what I'm looking for. I don't have Field of the Dead in this build, so I can just play out these lands. Be better at playing around the Spell Pierces of the world a little bit later on. I mean, I'll give you priority here. You're going to activate Stoneforge and put in something. It is Cryptic Coat. I will keep you off of white. You have Ward how much? Ward 2, which I can pay for. I've got the mana for that. Holding Stoneforge back. So there is white mana and presumably another piece of equipment here. So let's say no to white mana. Okay, same piece of equipment. We're just going to put Cryptic Coat back in. That's perfectly fine. Notably here, the creature has Ward 2, not the Cryptic Coat itself. So my opponent is generating extra bodies with Ward. Can be a little annoying under Maze of Ith. I think I have about 3 turns to hit a relevant spell that catapults me forward in this game. Otherwise, I think I am just going to die to these bodies. Oh, that takes out a lot of my outs. But that's a hell of a good spell. So I cast Living Wish. Yes. So Lumra got a lot less good with my opponent having a spell bomb here. I think I'm going to go this route, because this just happens on cast. So I am going to pick up Tabernacle here, and this makes it harder for my opponent to go wide of what I'm doing, and gives my opponent some tough choices. So 1 cloaked creature is gone, was a prismatic ending, and Stoneforge is also gone. Looks like my opponent wants to have the ability to nuke my graveyard, which is fair. So this turn, the Ward 2 on this creature means that I'm not Maze of Ithing, and this creature can't be blocked. So I do take 3 this turn, but then I am stable to board. Sure. Log you, your graveyard is not too likely to be relevant. And I can start attacking. Alright, opponent is preemptively nuking my graveyard. They'll get good value if I draw an Entomb or whatever. But they have cleared out the scariest things, right? Like that Ghost Quarter in particular is very, very strong when I have Tabernacle, and my opponent has probably used most or all of their basic lands. And then this whole Long and Dance is going to continue to repeat. Now the difference this turn is that this is now a defensive card. Assuming Tamiyo pluses here, this is a 2/2. I can keep Tamiyo in check or trade with a cloaked creature. I don't love how this looks, and if I'm the opponent over there, I would be really spinning my wheels trying to find a counterspell, preferably Force of Negation. Oseiju can kill Cryptic Coat. I'm gonna send in at this Tamiyo and offer a trade. Opponent takes the trade, which is fine. Or, well, they're going to try to take it, and then this is going to happen. So this is giving their creature 1 power. So now I am killing this creature. I could get swordsed. Fuck, I do get swordsed. Rough. Backfired. Opponent's got some more card selection. I am in trouble. Opponent has plenty of mana, multiple clues. Fuck. Yeah. I have Dismembers. Simon, I think we both forgot something in deck construction, bud. I'm going to concede there. Fuck, how am I beating Harbinger of the Seas? I guess I wasn't technically dead. I guess I can like Entomb for Vengeful Pharaoh there, and that's how we do it. Alright. Well, that needs to be on my radar for the remainder of the league as like a problem. Note there that I am conceding because I am not expecting my spells to resolve through the 6-ish cards in hand, plus Tamiyo recurring counterspells from graveyard. My hand is okay. I think I am fine keeping it. I would prefer a different source of card advantage than Living Wish in this specific hand, but Burgeoning probably does some cool stuff here. And assuming that I keep drawing lands, like, it will be fine. I'm going to put a Boseiju into play immediately. That gets life from the Loam. Okay. Ooh, am I eating Spell Pierce? No, it is a Brainstorm. Alright, Living Wish resolves. Myco Spawn? Myco Spawn seems like a reasonable thing to do. I think I am now going to pass the turn. My Entomb would likely resolve here. Ooh, is opponent not playing a land? Opponent is not playing a land. My opponent is about to discard. I'm just going to let them discard. I have these notions about like ghost quartering my own Boseiju. Is this a consign to memory? I'm gonna just put them to the test here. So trigger. It is consigned to memory. Sure. That is Cling to Dust. I guess my Entomb has gotten worse. I guess my opponent's not to 4 mana yet to flash that back. I fucked up. I was supposed to do some upkeep Ghost Quarter stuff so I could dredge life from the Loam there. Oops. Not the end of the world, but very obvious mistake. So I upkeep, Ghost Quarter one of my own lands, get a swamp to cast Entomb so that I can cast life from the Loam. Stoneforge Mystic. Sure. Going for Cryptic Coat and then Tamiyo. You got it. So now, float green, Ghost Quarter, target my Boseiju. Yes. Pick up black, Entomb. Pick up life from the Loam. Dredge life from the Loam. Life from the Loam. Boseiju, Ghost Quarter, Field of Ruin. Going 1 and 2. Nice. Land drop 1, land drop 2. I'll attack with Sowing Myco Spawn. Opponent is at 13. I will play a Drop of Honey. I'll pass the turn. I can potentially start Boseijuing lands. My opponent gets their 4th land. They can Cling to Dust my life from the Loam. Oh, that gives them that without the 4th land drop. That's quite good here. Sure. I was hoping to keep my opponent off of that. Then I will take 1 here. That's perfectly fine. And now I need the deck to do things. We blow up Tamiyo. Fantastic. Maze of Ith is great. That means I take 1 damage on an attack. So this is fine. Opponent goes to 10. I think I'm okay with making my opponent's mana worse. Fuck with this white mana. Note that Cling to Dust is now in exile from Snapcaster Mage. We good with that? I think I'm good with that. Got Boseiju to hold for Cryptic Coat in the future. I'm not sure where we're exactly at in terms of clock, because we had that weird game reset thing in the middle here. But we both might be approaching time. This has been a long match. As a very fast shuffle. I'm not sure what my opponent is looking for here. Like, they have a bunch of things in hand. I'm not going to put in Boseiju. That's better off as a spell here. And I will end up taking 1 from Snapcaster. Or sorry, from Stoneforge. Now we Drop of Honey, destroy Stoneforge. Go to Punchies. Punchies for 3. My opponent can block with Snapcaster to make me kill my own Sowing Myco Spawn next turn. Not the end of the world if that happens, though. Like, that means that they are not playing a creature on their own turn. Is probably fine for me. I think my opponent is currently favored in this game. So Drop of Honey destroys Sowing Myco Spawn, which causes Drop of Honey to be sacrificed. And I just need to find a banger. I need to find a banger before my opponent finds something like a Harbinger of the Seas. Sure. I can just take a Brainstorm worth of value. Lumra's not super great right now. I want like a Life from the Loam or a Ripples. Entomb for Life from the Loam is fine. I have a Ghost Quarter. I don't really need to use it yet. Once my opponent plays basic planes, Ghost Quarter is actually land destruction. What did we just talk about? What did we just talk about? We did not succeed in finding a banger before that happened. GTFO Cryptic Coat. So now Ghost Quarter can destroy. Aww. I guess with Harbinger of the Seas on the stack, I could have junked swamp, but if I do that, it gives my opponent basic plains, and I don't know that they already have that in hand. A bit awkward. This is a 3-turn clock. We can play this one out. I'm going to die quickly, or find Lumra and make a giant bear from hell. I mean, I'm going to play that. This is bad, though. I'm about to take 6 damage. This is just giving me more looks at Life from the Loam, I guess. The fairy. Sure. That's reasonable. I wonder if that's better than bouncing Snapcaster Mage. Doesn't matter, I am dead here. But I wonder if, like, having access to Snapcaster consigned to memory is better than just bouncing the ripples. That probably doesn't do anything. Regardless, GG's. That was a great game. Oh, we're so close to greatness here. No green source, and we could do that awkward Ghost Quarter thing again. I think I will just mulligan this one. Yeah, this has Burgeoning and Life from the Loam via Entomb. This is great, assuming no counter spell. I think I'm going to get rid of Lush Portico here. So, the way that I want this to go down is my opponent plays a land drop, I put in an Urborg, I Entomb, I get Life from the Loam, and we just fucking lands all over the place. Cool. Urborg. There is some world where I Entomb in response to that, but I would rather Entomb end of turn. I don't want my opponent to be able to cantrip knowing that Life from the Loam is coming. Oh, it just worked. So there is Life from the Loam. I will dredge Life from the Loam. Get a Field of Ruin. That's kind of whatever. But when you get multiple land drops per turn cycle, kind of doesn't matter if you have a crappy turn or two with Life from the Loam. So I am going to be looking for the Caracas and Maze of Ith style cards here before my opponent does something disgusting with a show and tell. Hey, Maze of Ith, fantastic. Did I not pick up Lush Portico before? If so, oops. We've got a Brainstorm in response. No, I just dredged over Lush Portico. 1, 2, 3. Yeah, okay. Force of Will pitching stock up. So it seems like we are playing against a show and tell deck, and they're just trying to keep me from getting Maze of Ith. Yep. So, I could Field of Ruin this Ancient Tomb. I think it is better to Wasteland, and I think this is a spot where I force my opponent to use Ancient Tomb mana now. It'll lag burst. So, Intuition? Hunting Wish instead. Sure. Going for Surgical Extraction on Life from the Loam. Reasonable. So now I am really going to need to find a Living Wish to win this game. Blast Zone is not good here. My Ghost Quarters and Field of Ruins are not particularly strong. I think my opponent very easily ends up waiting me out here. Like, they just play this game entirely on basic lands and never give me opportunities to blow up their stuff. Opponent kept their card on top, so I will activate Field of Ruin. I'll get a forest. They get an island, and now they don't keep their card on top anymore. Uh-oh. That is stock up. This is what we talked about on the podcast, where stock up in the context of an Ancient Tomb Shell ends up being very powerful. I guess I start ticking up a Blast Zone. I have nothing else reasonable to do with my mana, and might not for many turns. My opponent has shown me green as a secondary color, so I might not be needing to play around sneak attack specifically, but there's other things. Okay. I mean, that's very good. Caracas is great. I think I just get Lumra. Like, you cast a show and tell, I get a Lumra. That gets me Maze of Ith plus. That's probably better than just picking up Caracas. Now my opponent wants Omniscience as a part of their kill. Oh shit, well, alright, we're going. I mean, fuck, they have the Omniscience. Oh boy, okay, Bojuka Bog you. Burgeoning can go to graveyard. I now have a ton of permanents. One only has 2 cards. Lumra is lethal. So now they're just rolling the dice on stock up. Okay. Don't want to get excited here, because like, it's very easy to lose from this position, but like, this is lethal in play, and Emrakul does not beat me. That's a stock up, not fetching for brainstorm shuffling purposes. That's either a mistake or every card my opponent has is gas. Let's hope it's a mistake. That's another brainstorm. Now there's a fetch. That doesn't beat me. I'm just going to fucking block an Emrakul. Just shrug it off like it's nothing. Mystic Sanctuary. Looking at another stock up there. Sure. I'll get to disrupt that with Ghost Quarter. Oh wait, shit. Lumra is number of lands you control, not number of lands in play and graveyard. I'm not blocking it. I still just have lethal through it though, right? Get rid of you, you. You're not relevant anymore. You're not relevant anymore. Oh, it's 7, so I have to draw a land for this to be lethal. Oops. I mean, I'm a land-based deck. I'll just draw one, right? Hopefully. Now stock up happens. My opponent could just take another extra turn here, and that will get me. That's kind of hilarious. All right. Damn. I mean, we nearly won off our opponent's show and tell. I don't know that I'm sideboarding much here. I need to be able to Living Wish for this. I think I need to be able to Living Wish for both of those. What about Rex Sage? Do I want to be able to Living Wish for that, or do I just want to occasionally draw that as a surprise that I put in off of show and tell? I think these two cards are reasonable things to just board in. Vengeful Pharaoh is not particularly strong here. I'm getting hit in very, very, very large chunks. Oh, Drop of Honey is also really bad, though. Hold up. What does that mean for my deck building, then? Like, Bojuka Bog and Blast Zone are also, like, not very good. Tabernacle also. Awkward. Maybe Living Wish just becomes for my actual win condition, and I board in things like this to fill. I turn a Tabernacle into a Bojuka Bog. I turn a Tabernacle into something that has power and toughness. The other lands produce mana. Alright, so my Living Wishes are more narrow than usual. Sure. So we start out on Burgeoning, which has resolved, which means that I'm going to get a bunch of bonus lands over the course of this game. I think I actually want to put a Caracas into play to send the sign to my opponent that they should put in Omniscience and then try to get them with Rex Age. I think that's how I'm going to work this game. I don't know that I do that immediately. I think surveilling first is pretty good. Oh, buddy. They just put in the creature and I bounce it. That's pretty good for me. What an Amaze of Ith. Alright, is it stock up? Is it show and tell? What are we doing? It is stock up. So I need to now find a 2-mana source of card advantage. Get things going. Stock up means that just like wastelanding my opponent into oblivion probably isn't profitable. And then I have to make this choice. Like, it's still a good short-term thing to do. I don't think it's a good long-term thing to do. I'm going to play towards the long game here, not the short game. I am not rewarded. Not immediately, anyway. But I think I need to be digging towards a Life from the Loam or a Ripples or a Living Wish or something. Alright, so here we go. Hopefully I snag Omniscience right here. Fuck yeah. Opponent can still respond with some things like Cunning Wish that could beat me. Ho ho! Win condition in play. Now I'll go ahead and just have this chilling in play. Okay. Now we're a tempo deck. We're basically Delver. And now Wasteland becomes good. I think I'm going to go for the Ancient Tomb. The Ancient Tomb produces 2 mana, and I'm not actually cutting my opponent off of green if I get rid of Tropical Island. Well, Ancient Tomb's back. The opponent cast stock up for life rather than tapping it for green. Difficult to tell whether or not that is a mistake from this side of the table. Like, they might be trying to cast a Ponder or something afterwards, and that makes sense. Vengeful Pharaoh. I can actually cast that, right? Black, black. I'm just going to confirm, but there's at least another basic swamp. There is. So let's do something like float a mana, Ghost Quarter, Lush Portico, get Swamp, black, black, black. Straight up just cast a Vengeful Pharaoh. That was on your bingo board. Go ahead and check that one off. There is a Lorien revealed cycle with the final mana from taking the Ancient Tomb damage last turn. That Ancient Tomb damage might become relevant. Like, I put 5 more power into play unexpectedly. That is land drop into stock up, so now they're not tapping Ancient Tomb anymore. I have 7 damage this turn, which means Ancient Tomb can be tapped one more time. Exploration is not doing anything here. I'm just going to play it. Like, sometimes I might hold a card as a bluff against Show and Tell, but here, my opponent is dead on board, so if they have Show and Tell, they just have to cast it and hope for the best. So I'm not actually gaining anything by holding it. So every mana is now precious. And that is another immediate brainstorm. So my opponent is not looking much deeper there because they just put 2 cards back on top. So they are only looking 1 card deeper there. Oh, that's tough. So my opponent is looking for something. I don't know what it is. That's the concession. We win this one. Well, that whole Reclamation Sage line ended up working out. Is there a timeline where I just want to board in 2 Endurances and a Collector Oof to have more things that I can turn sideways because my opponent's stock ups are going to beat me as games go long? Maybe. Doesn't sound very good. Then again, like, Bojukabog and Blast Zone aren't particularly great. Yeah. I don't know that I want to trim any more lands. Like, black sources, I guess, do technically matter for Ripples of Undeath. So I had boarded in the Bojukabog. I think I'm going to leave the one that was default in the deck. I think this game where I'm on the draw is going to be very, very tough. I'm going to keep this hand. I think I am going to have to just believe that Life from the Loam can get me to where I need to be. But we are not there as of right now. Ghost Quarter, not what I'm looking for. I'll play Urborg and pass. I'll Entomb at my opponent's end step. This is going to be a Lorien revealed shuffle, and then just passing the turn. So, Entomb, or Life from the Loam, seems like it's going to resolve properly. Wasteland, not great here. So let's Living Wish. Yes. I think we're just doing this. Get another land drop in play past the turn. I can maybe just cast this next turn. Like, if I draw another green producing land, I've just got it. Oh, we're just going now. Okay, I'm gonna do this. I'm about to return all of these lands to play. Fuck. Sublime Epiphany. I can counter my ability here. So they're just drawing a card. So to talk about something that could have happened here, I could have double Ghost Quartered myself and then returned those Ghost Quarters to play. But unfortunately, I just eat an Emrakul, and we are dead on their turn 3. GG's. This opening hand does not do anything cool. This opening hand needs a little something. I can choose between keeping Drop of Honey and Living Wish. I guess I could put back the second Tabernacle, actually. Let's put back the second Tabernacle and not make that choice. Assuming I don't need black mana, I can start on basic forest so I don't get wastelanded. So much basic island. Also, I'm just realizing that this is only match 4. These games have been a grind. Not in a bad way, though. This has been pretty fun to play. Has just been a bit of a battle. I think, that can go to graveyard. I will dredge that next turn. That's really good value with that exploration. What a hit. Surveil Lands rule. So, I dredge Life from the Loam. Vengeful Pharaoh to graveyard. Beautiful. Let's play this around a daze here. 1, 2, 3. Bam and bam. Nice. I have another Surveil Land. I can technically Lumra next turn. I think I'm just not going to make Living Wish dazeable, though. I just don't really see the need to do that right now. Plus, sometimes I want to be able to Living Wish for a Caracas or something. Wasteland. Teferi is fine. Oh, it's just going to take their tempo play where they can get it. That Teferi is likely not going anywhere, but I'm not sure that I care. Lush Portico. Almost no matter what, this card is going into my graveyard. Yeah. So, Dredge, Life from the Loam, Replay, Exploration, Wasteland, the Wasteland. I don't care if this gets dazed. I'd rather play some of these other lands. So 1, 2, 3, bam and bam. Yeah, do not care. Drop a Ghost Quarter, get another land drop. I'll just play Boseiju here. Okay, yeah, honestly, I get it. We're probably not going to sideboard much here. We haven't seen a ton of my opponent's deck. We know that they've got Teferi. They could be a control deck, but they've got Daze, so they could be a combo deck as well, and the Teferi could just be a singleton out of something like Cephalid Breakfast. I think until I have more information, I'm not going to sideboard more. I could bring in some things like Endurance that wouldn't be that bad, but could have high upside. But my opponent could also be like a Stoneblade deck, in which case having Vengeful Pharaoh around can do some stuff. I think no sideboarding for this game. And seems great. This is a Keeperino. And a Ponder from my opponent. I could play an Exploration on one, or I could wait to play it around Daze. I think I'm fine playing it on turn one. Like if it gets dazed, it kind of sucks. If it doesn't, like the upside is so very, very high with Life from the Loam here. But I can just curve Exploration into Life from the Loam and like Entomb for whatever silver bullet I need very quickly. So I think I am good with this. That was a mistake. That was absolutely a mistake. I was supposed to play a fetch land, and I was also probably supposed to play a fetch land on turn one, so I think I misplayed twice by turn two. Donks. I just chose not to draw two cards. Hopefully it's fine. Dredge, Tabernacle. I'm just going to fetch to put something into graveyard here. Get a swamp. I can entomb for a specific land, but I don't really know what I'm playing against yet. I don't think I am going to do that. I'm just going to wait for a turn worth of information. Then the Entomb can also potentially become something like Vengeful Pharaoh or another Life from the Loam. This is where I wish I just had something like Urza Saga that I could just Entomb up, and all of a sudden I am in a good position. So Maze of Ith is good, Vengeful Pharaoh is good. I'll respond to that. Another Daze. Sure. I'm not actually worried about losing to that card in all likelihood. Like, I have Drop of Honey, I have Tabernacle. Currently just getting back Yavimaya. It's fine. So I will cast Drop of Honey. Alright, that's in play, so that answers that. Pick up one card with my Life from the Loam. And I'll still play out the Tabernacle. Like, this allows my opponent to sacrifice this to get rid of Drop of Honey immediately. But if they do that, they are not increasing the size of their own graveyard and drawing a card. I'll take 4. This thing happens. My opponent gets back a Murktide, which is not very castable right now. Could be castable next turn, though. So Drop of Honey goes away. I dredge a Life from the Loam. Randomly hit Vengeful Pharaoh. That's not the worst. Field of Ruins, not that good. Do a fetch land. Do Underground Mortuary. Just give a chance to kick another land into the graveyard that I can pick up with Life from the Loam. So in the short term, I probably want to take real draws rather than Life from the Loam dredges. I'm not very good at winning the game by dredging. If my opponent plays out the Murktide Regent immediately, I might need to dredge to look for a Maze of Ith so that I don't take 8 damage. Like, the Vengeful Pharaoh checks it, but I would prefer not to take 8. Negative. I get one more look, I guess. Living Wish. Is there a maze in my sideboard currently? There is. I'm going to leave that on top of my deck. I will still pick up 2 cards. Is that true? I still have another Life from the Loam in my graveyard. Maybe that's not true. And maybe that's not true. I will leave Life from the Loams in different zones here. So I can next turn Living Wish for Sowing Mycospawn. Ooh, opponent is trying to play around Vengeful Pharaoh. Interesting. So take natural draw, cast Living Wish. That unfortunately is a counterspell. Now I will just make a land drop and pass the turn and hope that my opponent continues to play around Vengeful Pharaoh. All right, they put Tundra into graveyard, so I don't need to like force a shuffle right here or anything. Wasteland, sure. All right, we're chilling. Do I want to Field of Ruin Wasteland immediately and make them use that Wasteland now? I think so. I think I don't want that to be able to hit a Maze of Ith in a minute. All right, so they take out my Lair of the Hydra. Means that neither one of us gets to search. I'll now dredge this life from the loam. Not great. Still got a Tabernacle, so I'll pick up Lair, Field of Ruin, Ghost Quarter. Go 1 and 2. I'm going to let this Tabernacle pass for mana. And then I'll pass the turn here. I really want this Maze of Ith, so I feel safe. Oh, fuck. Alright. Well, I got shit over here. So, do you have a way to play around this trigger? You do. So now I need to find something to answer the Murktide Regent this turn. I get 3 looks with Life from the Loam. Alright. Yeah. Nope. No, we dug through more than half of the deck and did not see a Maze of Ith. Dead. Well, that's disappointing. Given how that game went and how badly I wanted to find a Maze of Ith, I'm going to board in another. I think I'm going to naturally board in another Bojuka Bog. My opponent has creatures like the Goyf and Murktide Regent that care about the graveyard. I don't think it's enough that I want to Leyline. And I can even consider playing these. So Karakas probably doesn't matter unless there's Tamiyo. Blast Zone doesn't seem hyper relevant. That's 2 lands for 2 lands. Vengeful Pharaoh good, or is Vengeful Pharaoh cute? Might be good. It bought me a lot of time. My gut feeling is to do this and become better at just presenting some threats. But that fully might just be wrong, and I might be getting lost in the sauce of trying to play around my opponent's graveyard-based cards when Entomb for Life from the Loam and Entomb from Vengeful Pharaoh is just too good. Let's keep the Vengeful Pharaoh. Vengeful Pharaoh glued to hand immediately. Stonks. I think I mulligan this hand, but it's not that bad. But this hand is much stronger. I would prefer to have a 1-mana way of making extra land drops, but you don't get to have it all. So I'm just going to lead on Lush Portico here in an attempt to put a land into graveyard for Life from the Loam next turn. I would prefer to just Wasteland my opponent given the choice, rather than play Life from the Loam immediately. I am just so much more likely to naturally draw lands, and this gives me opportunities to potentially Life from the Loam around days. Flooded Strand and pass. Sure. Ooh, bonus Life from the Loam. Now I don't care if it gets countered. Any downside to playing Yavimaya? Probably not. Do the thing. That is a Force of Negation, which means I am lucky to have a secondary Life from the Loam here. Opponent going for a basic. I do have Life from the Loam Ghost Quarter for long term. Fair. Am I fine with Life from the Loam being a draw 2? Not a very good draw 2. But my opponent does not get to cantrip here immediately. I guess I actually play a land drop first. I prefer this not be just dazed, so I get no value off of it. Then my opponent can trade Spellbomb for the Life from the Loam, and then I will just be ripping cards off the top. Oh, so they are going for a Force of Will so that I don't get to draw those 2 cards, and then they can trade Spellbomb for all 3 of these. That's perfectly reasonable. Sure. You want to let me dredge my Life from the Loam? Yeah, I didn't think so. Living Wish. Absolutely. So let's cast that. Yes. I have 1, 2, 3, 4. I could just get a Sowing Mycospawn and try to sit on it for a couple of turns and kick it to get rid of one of my opponent's basic lands. This is just also uncounterable and is kind of a shitter. Let's do this. Uncounterable seems pretty good here. My opponent's low on resources. Double Wasteland. I mean, yeah, that's fine. And opponent's chilling with the next one. Okay, well, yeah. So I can play around a Spell Pierce. Bam and bam. Cast Living Wish. Yes. I could just pick up 5th land, but I think it's better to just do this. My opponent can't Wasteland me off of Duders forever. I have 30-something lands in my deck. That's fine. I could Ghost Quarter that to convert it into a different land, but I think that's just fine. Now any land lets me cast Sowing Mycospawn, which gets me to the follow-up land here. So yeah, could eat a Consign to Memory here, didn't. I have green. Could get Lair of the Hydra to put additional pressure on my opponent. I think I just like Bojuka Bog, though. I just make it less likely that my opponent can top deck another land. Yeah, and that was apparently what my opponent was working towards, and I just cut them off of it. So good shot in the dark on my end. All right. Opening hand is okay. I can play the early game on double basics here. I have multiple Entombs for Life from the Loam. I have Ripples of Undeath as another thing that's strong. I wish that I had a green 1-mana accelerator. And opponent says hello to YouTube. So much basic island today. And a Tamiyo, sure. So, I think I am going to stay on basics here. Cast an Entomb. That was a great counterspell target, so I don't think my opponent has counterspells in hand currently. I will dredge a Life from the Loam. So I don't think I'm playing a Life from the Loam immediately. I think I am actually starting on Tabernacle here to just mess with this Tamiyo. So my plan is to Vengeful Pharaoh this Tamiyo out of existence. Wait, does that work? No. I don't think 0 damage triggers combat damage. I'll Entomb for something else instead. It worked previously because my opponent specifically was dealing damage to me with other stuff. I'll do another Entomb now. I can get the Vengeful Pharaoh, assuming that it is going to be good later. Or I can just pick up something like Caracas or Maze of Ith. Throw Caracas in there. Pick up Ghost Quarter. So bam, bam, Forest, Life from the Loam, Caracas, Lair of the Hydra, Surveil Land for the future. Now we're set up to deal with the Tamiyo, unless it flips. Ah, fuck, I got the wrong thing. It's not Caracas I get, it's Blast Zone I get, because that answers Tamiyo either way. That's a mistake on my end. So there's the Brainstorm for exactly the scenario that I was just talking about that I could have played around. But I didn't, so here we are. I think I'm not going to take that draw. Drop of Honey, So I'm going to do this and this. I just want more card advantage going. And then I can dig 6 or so deep every turn looking for Blast Zone to answer Tamiyo. Which I already could have the answer in hand, but I didn't see it until too late. Magic's hard. Alright, so opponent is blue-white base. I'm not liking playing against these basic land-heavy decks that I can't just obliterate with Wasteland Life from the Loam. And without a 1-mana green card to follow this up, I don't think I can just Ghost Quarter all of my opponent's resources into Oblivion. That's rough for me. So let's try to surveil our way out of this. I mean, that goes to graveyard, I guess. I don't really want to be Life from the Loaming right now. I think I need to. Not just having something like Urza's Saga a hit is a little bit of a big deal. I guess I'm playing Lair of the Hydra as my land for turn so that I can attack Tamiyo. I'll pick up a couple of lands here. Play a tapped Lair of the Hydra so I can pressure Tamiyo next turn. I'm effectively dead to Swords to Plowshares. Tamiyo on 8. Then some hand sculpting. Again, this loss is fully my fault. If I get Blast Zone instead of Caracas, I just have this covered. And then, like, I have things like Murktide Regent covered as well as follow-up. Sure. I sure am not good at pressuring Planeswalkers. And opponent picks up Force of Will. No real point in doing that. So I just want to play an untapped land of some kind here. Doesn't super matter what, because all of my mana is just going into Lair of the Hydra. I'm dead to Swords to Plowshares or equivalent. Otherwise, the game goes on, and I'm just at a disadvantage. They've got it. I punted this game. Alright, I'm not gonna make them play it out from having half of their deck in their hand. So, Vengeful Pharaoh, not great here. Opponent seems to be Planeswalker heavy. So I want to be able to Living Wish for these 3 cards. I probably just want to play a couple copies of Endurance as things that can physically just attack Planeswalkers. I'm going to get this extra Caracas in as well. Tabernacle is not the best here. And I'm going to go down 1 Maze of Ith. And still tutor for it in an emergency. Okay, opening hand is good. It's better if exploration just like resolves and works here. I can do slow life from the Loam things if it doesn't. Let's show Ghost Quarter immediately. Again, though, my opponent's decks being so basic land heavy today has made this an uphill battle. All league. Alright, I only got 1 bonus land drop out of exploration. Womp womp. I guess I am now just playing life from the Loam. The next turn I can play Loam and Living Wish and probably work towards Thrun. I think that's the direction I'm going. Going Myco Spawn is also a thing, I guess. Ugh. Alright. Fetch. I guess I can stay on basics. Green matters if my opponent does Harbinger of the Seas. I will Living Wish. Yes. Let's just take the uncounterable one. Life from the Loam back, a single land, and pass. Opponent gets some selection now. How do they beat this? I guess the answer is present their own win condition, or create a Murktide Regent that's just larger. I have Blast Zone for Tamiyo. I think I just take a natural draw this turn. I can answer this whenever. I don't care about this being on the Planeswalker side. So I think I just shove my win condition and deal with Tamiyo in a minute. That's a land drop and a back to basics. Sure. Look for Boseiju? Bojukabog is not bad. To just keep my opponent from getting the Murktide Regent that I know is a problem. So let's go Wasteland, Bojukabog, Bojukabog you, and that will never untap. But again, the Murktide Regent is something that I have identified as a potential problem. And I already just have the number of basic lands necessary to nuke Planeswalker Tamiyo. I don't care if my opponent double cracks Clue this turn. How much loyalty does this have after it pluses 4? So it also just like dies to a Throne attack. Narset, sure. Finding a Brainstorm, which can flip a Tamiyo, which again isn't that big of a deal. I now have to decide if I am killing Narset. Narset doesn't matter that much unless my opponent does something dumb like cast Echo of Eons that instantly wins them the game. Or not Echo of Eons, Days Undoing. Do I care about dredging? Yeah, Boseiju's a thing. Wasteland Caracas. Let's Blast Zone the Tamiyo. I'm gonna kill this. I don't really want to. I just want to kill my opponent, but I think it's too easy for me to regret not killing this creature. There's only 1 instant / sorcery in the graveyard right now. 4th Aerlingas is a potential concern. Just double cracking clues. Snapcaster Mage or Brainstorm. Alright, different way to flip Tamiyo. You've got it. I do just have recursive Blast Zone to deal with that. This is not that problematic. Endurance? Do I just cast that? I probably just cast that. I can Wasteland Volcanic Island, so my opponent top decking 4th Aerlingas does not guaranteed just get me. So send in at Tamiyo. Snapcaster Mage will go under here. No. Why does Snapcaster matter? Flame of Honor? Have we gone that deep? In which case, taking my opponent off of red is nice. Draw your card, that's fine. And in respect of Murktide Regent as a chump blocker, I am going to just cast Endurance right now and nuke my opponent's graveyard. That puts Volcanic Island back in their deck, which I guess can be relevant. But we'll see where this goes. So that can be a second white source. Endurance eats a swords, that's fine. Whoa. What year is it? That's an actual factual Skull Rack. And the choice to attack with Snapcaster Mage. Field of Ruin is not particularly strong here. Life from the Loam. Target Wasteland, Caracas, Blast Zone. Yeah, and yeah. Caracas in play. Now, Terminus doesn't beat Thrun. I will have to get a shit ton of lands into play, but Thrun becomes recastable in an emergency. How many basic lands are in this fucking deck, by the way? Oh, plenty. 4, 5, 6. Sick. Even with just Verdant Catacombs, that means that I can recast Thrun. Alright, please don't entreat the angels. Nice. Opponent scroll racked, but didn't fetch away with Flooded Strand. Oh, did we find 4th Aerlingas? F, we did. Okay. Not good. Where's Tabernacles? Yep, that's what I thought. I can Living Wish for one. Opponent is trying to decide how many things they leave back to block Thrun. I think I would leave back 2, personally. I would leave back a Snapcaster and a Human Knight at different mana values so that something like Blast Zone getting weird doesn't do anything. I take 8. My opponent starts to get drawing extra cards from Monarch. Tabernacle's actually not great here. I'm just going to take a natural draw. That's not bad. So, bam. Combat, force the chump block, or my opponent dies. Oh, there's also Trample. Ooh, Trample's real good. That means I also become the Monarch. I had forgotten about the Trample on this card. Now I will draw a card. I will not dredge. I will just take a natural draw. Living Wish. Okay. Living Wish is cool. Opponent scroll racks. They don't have red currently to cast another 4th Aerlingas. There's a Ponder. Got Mystic Sanctuary, incidentally covered with Endurance. There's a Tundra. See how many creatures my opponent comes in with. Everybody is coming in. Well, opponent can't hardcast a Terminus. Oh, that's a concession. We just win this one. Huh. Well, we won. I don't know that I feel good about it, but like we cobbled together a win through Back to Basics. So that was a thing. I want Tabernacle now, knowing that my opponent has 4th Aerlingas. I still want to be able to Living Wish for these things. Maze of Ith style stuff becomes less good if my opponent is planning on winning via Planeswalkers and 4th Aerlingas. Could want the other Bojuka Bog. Drop of Honey is less good. I could see Drop of Honey not being very effective here. That's just probably worse than presenting my own threats. I'm going to board in the Sowing Mycospawn as one more thing to draw. I'm going to board in the Rex Sage as one more thing to draw. Tabernacles and Maze of Iths don't innately produce mana. How do I feel about Collector Oof as a 2/2 that attacks Planeswalkers? Pretty eh. Am I going to do it anyway? I might. We have 2 main deck Maze. Could play the Vengeful Pharaoh just as something to cast on 5 mana in the mid game. The 2/2 body eats it to Snapcaster Mage. Opponent says, soloed by Thrun, classic legacy, frowny face. Yeah. It is in the sideboard for a reason. It is very good in a matchup that looks like this one. Honestly, I am surprised that we got there with Thrun. It's hard for my opponent to answer, but like they were pretty close to putting together a win. This is a medium power level hand. I don't have a lot of land. I can Living Wish for a Maze of Ith that is another land. I can just count on my deck to draw land. We'll probably have access to a Life from the Loam. I don't have basics. I could get got by Back to Basics pretty quickly. I have an out to it, but it won't feel good and it'll take a while. I'm going to keep this one and believe in my deck to draw lands. But this, like, very easily could backfire. Another Life from the Loam is very much not what I want to draw here. We're doing some draw go. Okay. Naked Life from the Loam or Living Wish? I think Naked Life from the Loam. I want to have flexibility with the Living Wish. Like, I would really like Living Wish long term to just get Thrun. I think I will just concede if my opponent just slams Back to Basics this turn. Like, I technically have an out to it, but it'll be pretty miserable trying to get there. And then there's the fetch to clear the Brainstorm, presumably for a Plains. Am I dead? No, that's fine. I don't care about that. I mean, like, it'll do some work. It'll get my opponent a couple of cards, but that's not literally winning them the game. Dredge Life from the Loam. Love that exploration, but that's not how Life from the Loam works. So target Forest and Caracas. That is a Force of Will. So I missed my land drop this turn. Sucks. So this is the scary part where Narset could just dig my opponent into something like a Harbinger of the Seas or a Back to Basics. Lorien Revealed. I don't care about that. Chase the Mind Sculptor. Slightly care about that. It doesn't matter immediately, but it's a long-term problem. I think this likely indirectly beats me. I just stumbled on drawing lands in the first couple of turns. Caracas, Forest, I think Verdant Catacombs, honestly. I'm not wastelanding my opponent this game. I'm very far behind. I need to make my land drops. Yeah. Now I have missed 2 land drops while playing my 30-plus land deck. I suspect this is game over. I am comfortable conceding here. My opponent hasn't activated Jace yet. They're going to have 6 cards in hand. I think this is the point where I can just accept that my mulligan has led to my death. And I have some things to say about deck construction here. All right. Overall thoughts on the deck list here. I think the Ripples is fine. I think that is a perfectly acceptable thing to try to do in this deck. But I think the big problem here is that this deck is not trying very hard to win the game. The land decks that I've been playing that have been working are trying to win the game in their mana base, be that with Urza Saga or Field of the Dead or Dark Depths, and this is just doing none of that. It only has a singleton Lair of the Hydra, which isn't really a win condition by Legacy standards. It's just too easy to remove that with Wasteland or Swords to Plowshares or whatever. So that means when you're winning the game, you're doing it with probably one of these 3 cards with Living Wish, which basically means you have 4 win conditions in your deck, and you can't easily Life from the Loam into win conditions, which is a problem. So, Simon, if you are going to continue working with this deck, what I recommend is getting some land-based win condition into the deck. You know, it can be Urza Saga, it can be Field of the Dead, you've got options there, but I think you need a way to win the game in the mana base. That's currently just not there as of right now. I think the Entombs are awkward. I don't really know that they're worth playing. The additional access to Life from the Loam is good, but the way the current Legacy metagame exists is that Leyline of the Void is very, very popular because Oops All Spells is one of the best decks in the format, unfortunately. So if people are already going to bring in Leyline of the Void versus your Life from the Loam deck, I don't know that you should lean in further by also playing an Entomb package on top of that. Burgeoning was fine today. It is probably better than Mana Bond in this specific build of the deck, because you have some things like Living Wish that you might end up holding for a long time. But I very much miss having the ability to just easily win games via things like Mana Bond with Field of the Dead and like a mulch effect that just randomly smokes your opponent, or Mana Bond and then just Dark Depth Stage assembles itself. There's no easy way to win this game, and I don't think these 7 black cards make the prison elements strong enough to want to go down that direction. Legacy is also at a point where people are playing a ton of basic lands in respect of Sowing Mycospawn. So this, like, I am going to wasteland you to death very consistently with Life from the Loam, Entomb for Life from the Loam plan was just not coming together. And without an exploration specifically, the idea of ghost quartering the opponent off of all of their lands isn't super realistic. So there's some feedback for you. I hope it is useful. Folks, I hope you all have a wonderful rest of the day. If you need some cards, you know where to go. All right. See ya.